Hello everybody, welcome to Builder by Behind the Scene. Today we're going to take a second look at the Decimator MDLX converter. Not a cross converter, just a converter. And this is based on the question we had for this particular converter. Great little converter. I like what it does. It's what it doesn't do that's a little bit interesting and annoying. So what I'm going to do is go to another computer and we're going to take a look at that particular question on Builder by. Now this is Builder by Behind the Scene, and I'm going to go to this video, Decimator MDLX Converter Hands-On Review. And we're going to go down to that particular question. The question was posed by iRepair Electronics. Nice review. Was wondering if you have tried going from DisplayPort to this device via a DisplayPort to HDMI cable. And just off the top of my head, I was saying thanks. This was shot live, no edits and posted, was short on time. Interesting question. No, not yet. Thinking out loud. Cable should not matter. We only use the Decimator MDLX for output. Out of the ATEM is easy. As an input to the ATEM, that could be a problem. Into the ATEM is more difficult due to frame rates, 1080i, and I said 60, but it's actually 1080i 59.94. That's something that you want to always remember when you're looking at how this all works, because everything we do is in relation to the switch. Number one, the payload is 1080i 59.94, so keep that in mind. So as we go back to the question, as I said, the details matter. We'll test and see. And I said, thanks for asking and watching. Then his second comment, and I appreciate that, said, thanks, you just got a new subscriber. We're honored. Appreciate it. And I said, thanks, much appreciated. It is a privilege and it is an honor. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at how some of that works out. And I'm going to bring up on another screen and show you the back end of a computer, because the question is going from DisplayPort to HDMI. And we'd been doing it, but it's kind of like one of those things, walking and chewing gum. I do it, but then when you ask me, I have to think about it. So I've had some time to think about it, and I'm going to walk through this because it's the depth and breadth of a very simple question that we need a complete answer for. So I want to show you how we're doing this. So on the back of this computer, this is our Ryzen computer, and this video card is a WX7100. Now what you're looking at, I've got 3 plugs on there, and I'm going to flip back over to where I'm at, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is a plug that we get. It's an adapter from J&D Tech. I'll take it out of the wrapper. I looked long and hard for these, and when I was originally looking at B&H, I posed the question to somebody about an adapter. And they said, well, for DisplayPort, why would you want to go from DisplayPort to HDMI? You need a different monitor. They didn't understand we're going through a video switch. And I'll bring this up on another camera where we can get a better view. Now there's the MDLX converter. And there's the cable we're using. We have HDMI on one end and DisplayPort on the other end. And this little adapter is what we use with this cable. This is a Sanus cable. I'm not a fan of HDMI, but everything we do uses HDMI. So I use these Sanus cables because they're thin, because the connections I always think are very fragile on HDMI. And you want to protect those connectors. And then I use these adapters. And it gives me just enough length to get out. And I found both of these on Amazon. I'll show that to you too. Now here's the adapter we use. This is DisplayPort to HDMI. It's DisplayPort 1.4 to HDMI 2.0. Claims it'll do 4K. We're only doing 1080, so I don't know about that fact. Inexpensive. I have 4 of these. I think I have a couple extras just in case. We normally hook up the computer with a couple of monitors. Sometimes we hook it up with 3. But this is the video card that we're using, and we're coming out. And this gives us DisplayPort to HDMI. And the cable we use is this Sanus Super Slim cable. We've been through lots of HDMI cables. We used monoprice cables for a while. We tried some cables that had red mirror to get the ultra thin, and the red mirror was hit or miss. Sometimes they'd work, sometimes they didn't. So stay away from red mirror cables. You could plug a cable in one day, it'd work, the next day it wouldn't. You'd swap it for a different cable and it'd work, and then it wouldn't. Too aggravating, too annoying. And I have found that we've had the best luck with the ATEM video switch with all these connections and with the decimators using these Sanus cables. They're slim, they're 8 foot. We're at the maximum length we can go before we have to go to red mirror technology. And that's the cable I'm using as we go back and forth, using this Sanus cable with this adapter. So that gets us out, DisplayPort out of the video card, HDMI, and then we go HDMI into the converter. And remember, our payload is 1080i 59.94. That's what we have this video switch set up for. That's the payload. And at that payload of 1080i 59.94, the delivery doesn't matter. Our delivery is SMPTE level B. That's the default for the video switch. We can change it to A. But remember, you change one thing, changes everything. So to keep it simple, and with the converters we're using, and I think eventually we're going to need to go through some of the converters and show you what we're doing. We have DAC 70s, the data video DAC 70s, which are SMPTE level A. But as long as your payload is 1080i 59.94, they will work. And we use 2 of those with this video switch on this computer for 2 inputs. We also use the Decimators, but that's the Decimator MD-HX or the MD-Cross. To use the Decimator MD-LX, I'm going to plug these cables in and show you. The problem is the signal coming in is 1080p 60. We need that converted to 1080i 59.94. The Decimator MD-LX cannot do that. I wish it did. That was something that we were all excited about, especially for the price. But it doesn't do it. Now, if we change the payload to 1080p 60, the MD-LX would do what we need, because whatever's coming in is what's going to go out. Even though it's a converter, think of it more like a gender changer. We get HDMI DisplayPort. That's about all you get. And whatever your input is, you'll get a green light knowing it's going to work. Whereas if you need to check the signal, you're either going to have like an MD-HX or an MD-Cross that has that screen so you can see what's going on. Or if you've got access to a Teranex AV, you can plug one of those in and check your signals. So if you're not sure what your signal is, you need to keep in the back of your mind, I'm using an ATEM switch, and what's my payload? Our payload is 1080i 59.94. But what's coming out of that video card is 1080p 60. It has to be converted. It has to be cross-converted. The MD-LX can't do that. So let's go back over to that converter and take a look at it. Now that's the MD-LX converter, and I'm going to go to another screen and show you where I've got it set up. And the details won't be as clear, but you'll be able to see the monitors. And the reason for this is so you can get an idea of how the plug-in goes. Now, I've got this converter right now set up so that we have signal coming into it and signal coming out of it. The signal coming in is this large cable. And normally I use a Sanus cable for both, but I use this other cable, which is, as the question asks, going from DisplayPort to HDMI, and this is an active cable, so that you can see the difference in the 2. Signal coming out of the computer. Let me go back over to that computer. Right here, camera number 4. I've got these tabs coming out. This is normally what we use, these little dongles. But here's the cable for number 1. I'll also mention to you that if you've got a system where a video card, you want to use multiple inputs into the switch, make sure all your converters are the same. If I mix these converters, the converters will work, but the signal's not going to come in correctly. I've tried it before. It doesn't happen. For example, if I hook up 2 DAC 70s and 1 Decimator, the Decimator is not going to show a signal to the switch. It just doesn't work. If all 3 of these were Decimators, it would work. If all 3 of these were DAC 70s, it would work. But mixing the converters, it freaks out. It'll show a different signal. These 2 show one signal, and this will show a different signal if it's on a different converter. So all of them need to be the same. So what we're looking at right now is going from DisplayPort, which comes out of the video card, HDMI, and this is a full cable HDMI. So we go from this, and on the other end, we've got this. And with this set up as an input converter, I cannot get a signal into the switch. And I'll show you as you watch. If you notice the multi-view right down here, that input's not working because we're trying to bring it in on the MD-LX. The MD-LX, even though we still have video on the monitor because we're taking it out of this converter, that's pretty forgiving. It'll take that signal, whatever it is, and give whatever the monitor needs. They work. They like each other. But the video switch doesn't like it. The video switch wants the payload, remember, 1080i 59.94. So this input right here that I've got queued up has nothing on it. So if I change this converter to a Decimator MD-LX, we'll bring the video back up. It'll come up on a different input. I'll go to that screen and I'll show you. So give me a second while I reconfigure. Okay, we're going to disconnect our input. So we lost it on the monitor. We're going to disconnect the output, which was the monitor. We're going to connect the input on the Decimator MD-HX. We'll connect the output so we'll see the monitor back. So first things first, there's nothing connected here, but we have video back up on the monitor, as you can see. So now we'll pull this and we'll change this over. And if you'll notice, signal came back up. Disconnect, reconnect. Now on the screen, coming out, we're 1080i 59.94. Coming in, we're 1080p 60. Now Decimator MD HX and MD cross converters, all these Decimators, they ship as output converters. I don't know why. They ought to ship as input converters because it's what people need. And the reason I mention that is if anybody's having trouble getting their Decimator configured, don't monkey with the buttons. Forget it. Install the software. You'll have this thing up and running in 5 minutes. Believe me, 5 minutes. That's the way to go. So I'm going to disconnect this again. We'll pull the signal off. No signal to the switch. We'll go back over here. We'll disconnect the input. We'll disconnect the monitor. Now on the MD LX, you notice we've got a red light. So we're looking for HDMI input. When we plug input in, we're going to get a green light. Just have to give it a few seconds. Green light. Green light came up. If you can see that. We'll plug the monitor in. The monitor will come back up. And there you have an MD-LX. Now we see the monitor. Let me go flip that input. Okay, if you notice the inputs and the outputs, again we're on the MD-LX converter and nothing's coming into the switch. So we're going to disconnect the computer, and this is DisplayPort to HDMI. We're going to go back to the MD-HX. We're looking at input. We'll get input, disconnect the monitor. We'll just see the monitor right here over my shoulder. Nothing here yet, but the monitor, so the computer is up. Those two are talking, those are fine. Now we're looking for input on the switch. So we go to output, and we're back up. So to recap. Okay, so to recap, what we're looking at is the Decimator MD-LX and the Decimator MD-HX or the MD Cross. The only difference between the MD-HX and the MD Cross, tones and signals. Why would you buy one over the other one? Well, availability. The Decimator MD-HX and the MD Cross are the same thing, except the Cross does tones and also does test patterns. I wouldn't spend the money unless you just need that. The only reason to buy that is if you can't get hands on the other one. Been there, done that. That's why we own a couple of them. So again, this is about the MD-LX. And for those that are interested in the MD-LX, it makes a great output converter, but it's a lousy input converter because it's all about the payload. The payload is 1080i 59.94 as we have the switch configured. If we reconfigure the switch for 1080p 60, then this would do the job. Now with the MD-LX, where I think it really shines as an output converter is for the multi-view. That's what we originally showed, and I'm going to hook that up again, and we'll take a look at that. So what we'll do is we'll change this from an input that doesn't work to my preferred way to use it. We've got a green light, and there you have it. So now we have multi-view on two monitors, if you'll notice. That input's not working, neither's that. But what we've done is we've taken the primary multi-view and duplicated the multi-view up here just to show you that this is what I think the MD-LX is best suited for, is an output converter, and this is how we use it. I want to thank iRepair Electronics for your subscription. Appreciate your patronage, and hopefully we've helped enlighten you. This was interesting, trying to figure out the best way and the easiest way to show this and demonstrate it, because it's a great question, but like I said, when you asked me, I had to stop and think about it a second. And the way we do what you're asking is with these two cables that we get on Amazon. What we'll do for this video is we'll put a link up to these two cables, the Sanus cable and also to the JD cable. So for anybody that's interested in the MD-LX converter and how we come out of the WX7100 video card, which is DisplayPort, with those two items, that's how we roll with the MD-LX converter. So hope you found this useful. Appreciate if you'd subscribe. Thanks for your support, and it's an honor and a privilege, and I want to thank everybody for their participation. And again, folks, if you got any questions, please ask, because if we don't know it, we'll figure it out, and if we've gone too fast, we'll slow down a little bit. So I hope you found this useful, constructive, and it'll help you with your switch. I think as we go forward, based on some of the questions we're getting and from some of the things we've seen, we're going to walk through and show you some of the things about how we use our ATEM video switch. We'll go through some of the things like cabling. We'll start with the configuration, and we may just start at the beginning. That if someone's just purchased, let me back up. We'll start at the beginning and say which switch would be best for you, and then walk through the converters and everything that's involved, as well as cameras. I think that might be constructive. But for those that are at this point with the MDLX, great converter, but it's not a cross converter. It will not convert the payload, and the payload is 1080i 59.94. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. This is Gil Boyd, Builder by Behind the Scenes. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.